everybody. I'm Rich Davidson.
And I'm Maria Davidson.
And you're watching Off Topic.
Life After 40.
Something corny here. Hey, I couldn't think of it.
He can't help himself.
I can't.
Hey everyone, today we wanted to talk about something that is very near and dear to our hearts, and that is transitioning through the different phases of married life when you have children.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of like, we're on the, as some people at my work call it, the short roads. We have 4 kids. 2 of them are out of the house. One is getting ready to go to college, and the other one is getting ready to go into high school. And so, there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel. I guess that's one way to put it. And I think what we wanted to talk about, kind of more to put a finer point on it, is, how as a couple you deal with the transition from having younger kids to having older kids and, getting close to that empty nest syndrome.
Or not a syndrome, really, if you're...
Not like we wouldn't call it a syndrome.
No. Like, we're looking forward to those days. And I think that what brought this up is I was talking to someone and they said that we should talk about this because in their life, they held on to their kids too hard. And so as their kids have gotten older, it's been harder for them to be happy and healthy without the kids in the house, with the kids off doing their own things or just not wanting to hang out with mom and dad, or that sad feeling they get when that transition from you are your child's whole entire world. They believe everything you say. You can fix anything because your mom or your dad, to you don't know anything, I hate you, you're ruining my life, get lost, or anything like that. We have had kids, all 4 kids did different things through their teenage years, but there's not a single one of them that did not think that at some point we were just too dumb to live. And I wasn't hurt by that. Why? Because I want my kids to grow into independent beings with their own thoughts and feelings. And I know that I felt that way about my parents. I'm thinking you felt that way about your parents at some point in time in your teenage years too. And I don't feel that way anymore. There's these transitions in life, and it's cyclical. As things happen in your children's life and they grow, they become more like your friends once they're out of the house and not depending on you for survival.
Yeah, and for us, look, we've seen parents from one end of the spectrum to the other. Kids or parents that simply, their children are their entire lives, and in all fairness, when the kids are little, they kind of have to be that because they're 100% dependent upon their parents. But we've seen that even in parents of older kids where, so much is invested into their lives that maybe the parents lose sight of their spouse. And then we've seen the other end of the spectrum where, people really hate their kids and, really dislike them and looking forward to nothing better than when they leave sooner rather than later. And I think for us, while we don't hate our kids, we're probably in the middle. I think we had a healthy understanding of, what our kids needed from us when they were younger, and how dependent they were, and but I think we also struck a pretty good balance in terms of, as they got older, starting to kind of introduce them to independence to a certain extent. And of course, we were never perfect about it, but I think for us, we are looking forward to when the kids are gone, and we have a little more freedom. But that doesn't correlate to us. Oh, I hate our kids, because I don't. I love them, but we've seen both sides of the equation.
So I think one of the important things, if you're watching this and you have young children, or even if you have older kids but you're struggling with their independence because you've created this environment where they get 100% of you, I would tell you to stop. Stop what you're doing right now. And the reason for this is because your children are learning about relationships based on how you live your life. So I know that we're talking a lot about marriage, and I know that there are single people raising children too. And actually, single people tend to have less of this issue because they have to work so much harder to maintain a home, that a lot of focus does go into work, and the kids do become more independent. But it's obvious when a single parent loves their child versus being a negligent parent. So I don't want to exclude single parents. I just think in terms of whether you're in a relationship with somebody, in a partnership, or you're married, your children are going to learn what relationships are supposed to be like from you. And if you are 100% committed to your children, then you cannot also be committed to your relationship, because there's only 100% of yourself to give. There's no more. There's no less.
No 110%?
No 110%.
Yeah,
So
scratch that analogy.
sorry. So your kids, they rely on you to model the proper behavior. And that means making sure that your spouse gets that some part of you in a visible way, that you cuddle with your spouse, that you have conversations with your spouse that is, or your partner, that is not directly related to the kids. And that's not just for the kids, that's in your private time too. It is hard to, when your kids get older and your life is less involved around them, it is hard to have a different kind of life if you've always focused on the kids did this and the kids did that and kids. It is natural, especially if you're going through a tough time with one of your children, to spend time talking about them. But you need to isolate, that's the wrong word, but you need to set aside time where you're talking about each other, that you're talking about the future or future plans, which we do a lot.
We do a lot of talking.
You know?
Not a lot of doing, but
yeah, but we're talking about what to do after
you're
the
right,
kids.
and I think I think it's important to say right now that there are going to be those times where you have to give all of yourself to your children. We have experience with illnesses, serious illnesses, and without going into a long story. Those were the times where not only did the kids get more of our attention, actually one of our kids got the bulk of the attention.
Well, on two separate occasions.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
with Daisy during a crisis time in her life, and Reese during his cancer,
yes,
during his chemo and that kind of thing, we spent a lot of time
so those are
on a kid and not on each other.
Yeah, those are going to, there are always exceptions. There's always going to be those times, but I think what we don't necessarily focus on the exceptions, because I think in general, you need to be committed to your kids because they depend on you, but your relationship with your spouse has to grow. It has to move forward, because much like anything, it's not going to be good enough if it stays the way it is forever. You always need to be moving forward in that. And so I think I think for us, we've experienced those times where we have had to pour most of ourselves into our children or into one particular child. So we understand there's, this isn't just a rule that you have to follow 100% of the time. There are going to be those instances. But that being said, it is amazing how many people I have met throughout the years who, I sit back and I wonder what's going to happen when their kids get older.
And we've personally seen couples who have devoted 100% to their child rather diverge severely when their child became an adult, to where they're living separate lives but sharing a house. In some cases, it's a religious belief that you're married. And so they're still married, but they vacation separately. They live their life separately because they did not spend time developing themselves to the point where they were comfortable with each other in their current iteration. Because we've talked about this in previous episodes, but we are not the same people today that we were when we met, and then we were different when we got married 5 years after that, and so on. And it's my mom who says, if you don't like who you are right now, or if you don't like your spouse right now, wait 5 years, because the transition from that person to the next person is coming. But if you're not involved in each other's lives in a pertinent way that has nothing to do with your children, you're going to miss out on that growth. And you may wake up one day, your kids are out of the house, and look at your spouse and go, who is this person? That's definitely not the person I married, which is, true.
Well, and that is, I guess when I think about those people that invest all that time into their kids and very little to their relationship, that's the inevitable conclusion that I come to, is that one day they're going to wake up and they're not going to recognize the person that they're married to. Well, I mean, you know what I mean. They will, but the relationship the dynamics will change because the kids are no longer there anymore. So We've described the water. Now we need to figure out how to get across that body of water. And I think you said it first. You need to stop. It's fairly easy to recognize when your kids are getting more of you than they should. And so the first thing is to stop. And I think the second thing I would say is find out I shouldn't say find out. You'll probably already know this, whether it's your partner, your spouse, or whatever. What you two enjoy doing. Maybe it's going out. Some people can't afford to do that with the coronavirus. Some people can't. But maybe it's talking, maybe it's watching movies, maybe it's cooking together, taking walks, whatever it is. You can typically find something to do even if you're poor, because we've been there before, and invest that time. And even if you have to schedule time for it, if you have to move stuff around, and maybe even you have to take the kids with you. Well, we've done that before.
Yeah.
But it never inhibited us from allowing our relationship to grow. And I think if you make a habit of doing that, then you're kind of poised for your relationship to grow. And, you just might find, a completely new adventure, if you will, after the kids leave, because this person better than you would have if you had invested all your time with your kids.
And I realize that for some people this is going to be a difficult topic, because we live in an environment right now, and I'm not talking about COVID, I am talking about right in this generation, I think since we had Reese, who is our 15-year-old, where we've seen parents become uber parents. Their kids become everything, their whole world. Every post on Facebook is about their kid. Every photo includes pictures of the kids and all of their accomplishments and all of this stuff. And I have a friend, and if she decides to watch this, she'll recognize the story. Um, she posted on Facebook that she was feeling so bad about herself because she was starting to resent her kids. And in her case, she had kids like this: one, two, three, four. Two of them in 1 year because one was an adoption. An unexpected, a family member
Yeah, whatever.
abandoned a child, and so they decided to adopt. So she felt overwhelmed, and she had joined a couple of moms groups, and she had tried to express how she was feeling and was blasted out of the water for being a terrible mom, for resenting the time that she's spending with her kids. And I asked the question, when's the last time you were out with your husband? Well, it had literally been since their first kid. And at this point, they had 4. And I'm like, that's not acceptable. That is absolutely no way to live a healthy life. You are going to teach your children how to be healthy by being healthy yourself. And I'm not just talking about physically. Yeah, we're teaching our kids about health by being overweight. We're teaching them something different than we would if we were fit and healthy. But I'm also talking about emotional health.
Let's reverse psychology.
It's not working.
Don't eat as many pancakes as I do. Well, they're all skinny, so
Well,
easy.
what?
I don't know.
All I was going to say is we're not perfect by any means, but I think we do well in modeling our relationship, because we go out of our way to tell them to get lost, that we want time alone, that we need them to go do their own thing for a while so that we can hang out and talk, watch a movie, or go out to dinner.
Them doing their own thing is actually getting progressively easier.
Yes.
Now that they're teenagers, they don't really want to hang out with us.
No, they
unless
don't.
we're buying food. And, if we're going out and we're paying, then
And actually, there are exceptions.
love mom and dad.
There are exceptions to that too.
That's
Yesterday,
true. That's true.
I sat in our room. Rich was working on a video for our church, and the kids came in and were like, "What are you doing, Mom?" And I'm like, "I'm just hanging out." And sometimes that's what we do. We just like to be in the general vicinity of each other. He's doing his thing. I was reading a book. And the kids came in and they wanted to chat, and we sat down. We were just all 3 of us sitting on the bed, and we talked for probably an hour and a half about stupid, silly, random stuff. It was not vital or important or anything like that. It was just casual. And the older the kids get, the more of that we do get. I think that's what I'm talking about in terms of the transition in your kid's life. So when your child is born, they are 100% dependent on you. And you have to give everything. There's no way around it, because especially if you're nursing, then there's nobody to share that responsibility with you as a woman. And so your child gets almost all of your undivided attention. And when they get into that toddler thing and they're into every single thing, and you have your eye out, making sure they're not getting into something they shouldn't, and if something gets too quiet, running to make sure they haven't swallowed something they shouldn't, or stuck a fork in an outlet that you forgot to childproof, or whatever the case may be. But then they hit that 5 and 6-year-old age, and they want to do things for themselves, and they can tie their own shoes and choose their own clothes, and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with supervision, usually messy, and you start going, you see the light. That's when I first started seeing the light with the kids. That might seem young, but I realized we need to cultivate that. We want our children to make their own food, choose their own clothes, have their own interests, develop their own skill sets, and eventually leave the house. And a lot of parents, they get into this baby mode. The baby needs everything, and they don't ever breach that. That's how they view their children. And even I've heard grown adults talk to their 13, 14, 15-year-olds like they're 5 or 6. And every single little thing is monitored they live under an umbrella, and then are surprised when they are not successful when they go off to college or try to live out on their own or that kind of thing.
Well, and I think it's important. It's important to recognize that. It might be hard to recognize that, especially if that's just kind of how you've done things, whether it's your first kid or your third kid or whatever. But being able to separate yourself and invest in your relationship with your spouse is going to make you, honestly, I think it makes you a better parent.
It does.
It's going to make you a better spouse when the kids leave the house, because eventually they're going to.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, we'll see. But the jury's still out on that one. But I think those things are important. It's important to do, because it's gonna make things easier for you. That doesn't mean you don't care about your kid. That doesn't mean you don't worry about your kid, because as a parent, you're always going to. I still think about my two older kids that aren't in the house, and occasionally I hit them up on Facebook or something, ask how they're doing, because I'm interested, or I'm curious, or I was just thinking about them. So you're always going to be a parent.
I think so.
But there's going to come a time where the kids are gone, and it's going to be you and your spouse, and you want to be able to have a good relationship with them, so that you're not playing catch up. Because if you do commit all this time to your kids and you ignore your spouse, you ignore your relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to end when the kids leave, although some do. Many do, actually. But you could be playing catch up. And those are the times you really want to enjoy each other's company. Usually it's a time, statistically speaking, where people have more money, so they're able to do things. And those are the times you really want to enjoy. And there's no reason to have to get to know your spouse or your partner again after the kids leave. Yep. Just do it while the kids are there. It's going to be a good example for the kids. It's going to be good for you. And at that time, it's going to be good for you in the future.
So one of the things that you may be doing right now that prevents you from spending time with your spouse, and this actually may not be occurring right now due to COVID, but this may be what your life was before, and you might right now be going, this is nice. You may be one of those people going, we've just found such joy and enrichment in this alone time, and it could be because you're so busy all the time. And I'm thinking about my sister, who found a great balance in her life with her husband. Their kids are all sporty. And as a result, they were constantly running around doing stuff. And my sister realized it was exhausting. And she still wanted time with her husband. And so she said 1 extracurricular per kid. Each of you choose one. Choose your favorite thing, and that's what we'll do. She has 4 kids as well. You're still going to be busy when you have 4 kids and 4 kids in extracurricular activities, but instead of having each one in 2 or 3 and constantly being on the run, she was able to find that time. They have a very healthy social life. Mm-hmm. And I think that she did a great job finding that balance. Part of that was recognizing her own exhaustion in the midst of this, and how much it was taking a toll on her life in general, and realizing your kids don't need to do 100 different things. Your kids, firstly, should learn how to be bored. As adults, we all face boredom, and some of us face boredom a little better than others. And if you have downtime when you're a kid, you learn how to occupy yourself in a more productive way. For example, my downtime led to reading. Now, I grew up without internet or anything like that, and there is a lot more to capture our kids' attention today than there was when we were kids in terms of entertainment. But we were expected to entertain ourselves from the time we were 8 or so. And we all did extracurriculars too, but like my sister, my parents did one for each of us. And so they weren't constantly running around. and they modeled good behavior for us. And I think it's natural to want to give your kids everything that you didn't have, or try to cultivate every gift that they might have. But they need to recognize that some things are going to be done on their own. And with the internet, for goodness sakes, there are YouTube channels for everything. You can learn how to paint, draw, play the keyboards, dance, sing, snort milk out your nose. I mean, seriously.
Throw it down one.
There are some really, it's expansive. And so it is okay for your kids to learn how to do something on their own. Yeah. You don't have to take them to the professionals for everything. Give yourself a break and allow yourself, if you're single, allow yourself some you time. And if you're married or in a partnership, allow yourself, you also need you time, even when you're married, but also allow for relationship time.
So we've got, the first thing you need to do is you need to stop and evaluate where you're at. Maybe you have a good balance, but maybe you don't. If you think if you're thinking that you don't, then you probably don't have a good balance. So stop, make time for your spouse or your partner, or if it's just you as a single parent, make time for you. And then pull back, slow down if you can. Some people can't. Some people's lives are just crazy, hectic, busy, and some of it is because of finances or whatever. And once again, like we talked about earlier, there's exceptions to everything. But if you can, pull back, like her sister. We're gonna slow down on the extracurricular activities. You're still gonna be able to do them, but we're not gonna be doing it all the time. And invest time with your spouse, with yourself. And when you do that, I think you're going to be better off for it all the way around. Your kids are going to be better off for it. You're going to be better off for it. If you're in a relationship, that relationship is going to be better off for it. And it's just proper prioritization. That's not a word either. But getting a property, getting whatever I'm trying to say, it. But you get that stuff taken care of, and you get things in order. Look, there's so much in life that we can't control.
Yep.
There's so much that's out of our control. So the things that we can control, I think we need to be as guarded about that as possible. And we're, without going into any details, we're oftentimes not great at controlling some of the things that we can control. But in a world that seems to be so out of control, and there's so many things that you can't control, I think you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people around you to control what you can. And this is one of those things that you can do, especially if you're in that transition to having an empty house, which for us won't be long. Yeah. For other people, they may be staring at that situation right now. It may seem like a distant future, but it will happen, and it's best to be prepared.
And so I will say,
okay, guys, so here's the deal. Our digital audio workstation that we use to record the audio for all our video projects apparently needs Jesus, because it has a demon. And that demon saw fit to stop recording the last 5 to 6 minutes of our video. However, we do have the audio from the camera, so you're going to notice a bit of a dip in audio quality, and I apologize for that. Thankfully, you'll still be able to make out everything we have to say, and we're going to do everything on this end to make sure this doesn't happen again. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video, and we'll talk soon. Later.
So I will say, be honest with yourself. Don't concern yourself with what other people say about your parenting, unless you're literally abusing your children.
then stop it.
Yeah,
Don't do
stop.
that.
But everybody's a critic. We're critics, obviously. We're sitting right here telling you if you're 100% giving to your kids that you need to stop.
We don't agree. That's the worst judgment of all.
Yes. But be honest with yourself. Are you feeling like, if you feel completely and utterly fulfilled in your relationship with your partner, your spouse, and you're giving 100% to your kids, ignore us.
Yeah, what are you watching this for?
Yeah, you should have stopped already.
A long time ago.
But obviously this is anecdotal, but we've been married for a long time, 27 years. He's 50, I'm 48. So we're not super young. We have actually a lot of life experience in this. We've had a lot of friends throughout our life. We've seen a lot of families throughout our life, and we've seen the results of helicopter parenting. We've seen the results of 100% to kids, nothing to marriage. We've seen the results of no me time. We've seen it. I've seen people get physically ill. Well, one person, I don't want to exaggerate here, but literally waste away because their life was no longer theirs. And it wasn't until they recognized what the issue was that they started to recover. These are things that can actually manifest in physical ways or in your relationship. And we've all heard it. A couple that's married for 35 years, their last kid gets out of the house and they get a divorce. Why? Because they stayed together for the kids, because everything was for the kids. And they did not devote time to themselves and to their relationships. When I say yourself, I do things for myself. Rich does things for himself. I paint. He doesn't join me when I paint. I do that alone. I will show him stuff. Sometimes I get irritated because I don't achieve my goals and he thinks I'm picking on him.
It's my fault.
And it's not.
Okay. So I didn't go into the
But he's got his now you got to show a picture.
No.
He's got his mixing.
You don't even know.
Video production.
I don't even know you anymore.
That's the spousal abuse for today. But he's got his music. Those are the things that are his, and he'll show me his end results just like I get to show him mine. But those are things we do ourselves. We've both spent money on ourselves in these areas. When we were younger, people used to say, make sure you have a date night once a week, and it used to piss us off because date night to us was spending money, and we were broke. We were very broke. Yes. But I will tell you, date night could simply mean taking a walk around the neighborhood and letting your kids be 10 feet in front of you so you can keep an eye on them, but they're not part of your conversation. We couldn't even afford a babysitter when the kids were very young. We worked opposite shifts. That's how we managed our lives. But our time together was precious. So taking time for your relationship doesn't have to mean spending money. Just make some time for yourself. And I think we'll wrap up here. I want to thank you, as always, for watching all the way to the end. We appreciate you, and we hope that you will like and subscribe this video.
Yep.
If you don't like it, hit the thumbs down. That still actually benefits us. Leave a comment if you don't mind, and we comment on every comment.
Yeah.
Because
and if you want us to talk about something, or just say how wonderful my hair is.
If you want to lie,
I'll take it. But yeah, do that. But anyway, thanks for watching. Yep. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys next time.
bye.
Bye.